All right.
Everybody ready to go? Or just let me know. We're good? All right. This is a huge announcement that we have today. A really big day for our city, really big day for this administration. I campaigned on a platform where public safety was a top priority. Public safety remains a top priority. And today we're super excited to announce the numbers for the end of the year crime report for 2019. And it shows that 2019 was one of the safest years in Shreveport history. Part 1 crime fell 8% over the past year, reaching its lowest point since 1975. I'm going to repeat that. Its lowest point since 1975. That is 45 years that this is the lowest point. When compared to 1989, the highest year for Part 1 crimes on record, it's a 60% decline. A 60% decline in reduction for Part 1 crimes. Homicides saw the sharpest decline. It was 29% less homicides last year. That is huge. These aren't just numbers, and I know we like to think about it in terms of numbers sometimes, but these are lives. This means with fewer homicides, there are fewer children that have to bury parents, and fewer parents that have to bury their children. I've sat in these living rooms over the past year. I've spoken to these families, and I can't emphasize enough how important that is, that families don't have to go through that. And we're going to continue to try to make our city safe as possibly can be. Many factors contributed to this historic reduction in crime. I want to highlight 2 of those factors. 1, community policing. Not just us in uniform, not just us on the government side, but also the citizens working diligently to keep their neighborhood safe was a big one. And another one, it was just good old-fashioned police work as well. Chief Raymond and myself stress community-oriented policing because when our Shreveport police officers work with the community, it makes our neighborhood safer and our city stronger. I also want to recognize Shreveport's finest, Shreveport Police Department and the Shreveport Fire Department that work together, keeping us all safe. So on behalf of the residents of Shreveport, I want to thank our Shreveport public police officers and fire department, and turn it over to Ben Raymond right now to go in details about those statistics. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. I as well would like to start off with a few words, and I'll discuss specifics of what is included in that 2019 crime report. The mayor and I, as he mentioned, are releasing the 2019 end-of-year crime report, which represents the lowest total Part 1 crime since 1975. Part 1 crime includes homicide, rape, robbery, burglary, theft, auto theft, assault, and battery. And agencies throughout the nation report these crimes to the FBI, who compiles a statistical data which allows us to compare ourselves with other municipalities and agencies to see how we're doing nationwide. In 1975, Shreveport reported 10,628 total Part 1 crimes. From that year forward, crime has trended upwards to a high point of 25,095 in 1989. During the last decade, it has come back down, but in 2019, we reported 10,665 Part 1 crimes. That's fewer than 40 more crimes than were reported 44 years ago. We are not here to pat ourselves on the back, because if you were one of those people affected by those 10,665 crimes, you would argue there's nothing to be happy about, and I can empathize with you. However, a 44-year low in Part 1 crime is something that deserves recognition. So we will recognize the men and women of the Shreveport Police Department who work tirelessly to get criminals off our streets, who work nights, weekends, and holidays so the rest of us can enjoy time off with family and friends. Our investigators who respond at a moment's notice to all sorts of crimes requiring their expertise, from thefts and burglaries, assaults and batteries, to rapes and homicides. Our patrol officers who responded to over 200,000 calls for service in 2019, yet still had time to be proactive and prevent additional crimes from occurring. We ask our officers to do more and more every year, and we are going to congratulate them for this historically low crime rate. Not only have the men and women of the Shreveport Police Department worked tirelessly to produce the numbers I'm about to share, but numerous law enforcement partners, the state, local, and federal level, have also contributed greatly to these reductions. The Shreveport City Marshal's Office, Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office, Louisiana State Police, Louisiana Probation and Parole, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Drug Enforcement Administration, U.S. Marshal Service, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Homeland Security Investigation, Secret Service, Caddo District Attorney's Office, U.S. Attorney's Office. Every law enforcement entity that has jurisdiction within the city of Shreveport has helped in special operations and countless daily investigations, which took criminals off our streets and prevented more crime from occurring. To all the women and men in those agencies, I thank you for your dedication and assistance. To all those agency heads and local commanders, I thank you for always assisting when asked and when you recognize the need without us having to ask. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize all the nonprofit, faith-based, and community organizations that have contributed to the low crime rate because of the services you offer, as well as individual citizens who provided tips about crimes or were cooperating witnesses to help us solve these crimes once they were committed. The Shreveport Police Department would not be successful without your contributions as well. I began my remarks by stating that total Part 1 crime for 2019 was 10,665 crimes. That represents a 7% reduction from 2018 and a 60% reduction, as the mayor mentioned, from that high of 25,000 in 1989. For 2019, violent crime decreased by 8%, homicides down 29% from 2018. Furthermore, property crimes were reduced by 7% since last year, to include an 11% reduction in burglaries alone. There are so many contributing factors to lowering crime that I would not be accurate if I tried to give credit to any particular agency, policy, or effort. However, within the Shreveport Police Department, we made some changes in 2019 that I do believe contributed to this reduction. First and foremost was adding more officers to patrol duties. This was done in part by reducing personnel assigned to specialized units, but more effectively by implementing the Supplemental Patrol Program, whereby every officer, corporal, and sergeant assists with patrol functions to some degree. Putting more boots on the ground allowed us to be more responsive to citizen calls for service and more proactive in our efforts to prevent crime from occurring. Additionally, we use technological advancements to help us deter, prevent, and solve crime. These advancements include better security and surveillance equipment, which was responsible for capturing many criminals in the act, ultimately allowing us to solve crimes with the help of public identifying the criminals responsible. Technology allowing our crime analysts to track spikes in crime in close to real time, thereby allowing us to allocate manpower and resources when and where it is most needed. But technology will never take the place of those dedicated men and women who are sworn to serve and protect this city and have dedicated their lives to serving others. And it will never replace each of you. As citizens, you are the eyes and ears of our city, and we will strive to improve upon our community policing efforts. As police and citizen relations continue to improve, so will our community, and our crime rate will further decrease. To close this morning, I'm thankful for the reductions we were able to report for 2019, but we are not satisfied. In 2020, we will continue to be innovative and proactive in our efforts to reduce crime and improve the quality of life for everyone in Shreveport. We will implement better technology to help solve crimes and prevent more from occurring. Lastly, we will continue to strengthen our bonds with citizens and neighborhoods we serve. The mayor and I are committed to improving the quality of public safety in our city, and I can say with confidence that we are headed in the right direction. Are there any questions about any other categories of crime that I may not have mentioned that anyone was curious about?
I think you hit the big categories that everyone's curious about, but let's talk about the perception. These numbers show something different than what people perceive.
Yeah, and you know, I think perception is an important part of it. People have got to feel safe, and it's important to the mayor and I both that people do feel safe in their homes. That's a big part of that community-oriented policing, is that we can explain what these numbers mean, and you know, it's still important for people to understand, hey, there is crime, but if you look at it over a 50-year period, which gives us a really good look at what Shreveport can experience, understand that the crime is at the lowest level it's been since 1975, and I think that's important to note. So there are things we can continue to do going forward, and we want people to feel safe, even though we know that they are safer than they have been.
So what would you say is your biggest concern right now? Some of the numbers look great, but going forward, is there any one particular thing that you would kind of, that you'll be focusing on or worried about?
Yeah, we're going to continue to focus on violent crime. So we had 42 homicides in 2019, and that's not something to be excited about. Now, compared to the 59 we had last year, yeah, we're heading in the right direction, 29% fewer. We want to continue to see that number decrease. I think it's probably important to note that if we look at our 50-year history, 42 is the average number of homicides dating back to 1970. So we're right at average, but average isn't good enough. We want to pull that number down lower. And then property crimes, we still continue to struggle with some of those property crimes, thefts from autos, residential burglaries, and a lot of that we decreased toward the end of the year, and I think it's a lot of the public safety announcements and getting the community involved. And again, as we continue to see those technology advancements and continue to get more cooperation, those numbers will come down.
Can you talk about the homicides? Where does it stem from? Is it domestic issues? Is it gang violence?
There's quite a few of them were domestic. I would say the majority of them, it was not a random act of violence in that the victim and the suspect knew one another. And in many cases that was domestic related, in other cases it was crime related, maybe involved in other criminal activities such as drug dealing or some criminal organizations. So it's unfortunate that it's very difficult to prevent homicides. The best chance for us to prevent homicides is to really focus on some of these other crimes, these other violent crimes, especially such as robberies and domestic violence. And we put a lot of effort into trying to reduce those numbers and get those criminals off the street before they have the chance to harm somebody.
Now, to better understand the numbers, what percent would you say is domestic? So we know the area you really can't control.
Yeah, I don't have the exact. I'd have to go back and look at each of those 42 and break it down. So I don't want to give you a percentage and be inaccurate.
I can, if I may, Chief, I can say last year and for the month of January, a majority of the homicides that took place were domestic. It was a roommate with a roommate, fiance, and two brothers, as a matter of fact, was three that comes to the top of my head. So what goes in, Chief already pointed out, a lot of these victims know the perpetrator. So even if we have police on every single corner, we can't get to those. And there's some other ways that we have to bring this holistic approach to our community to really emphasize the value of life.
Are more people speaking out when crimes occur? Are more people more open to saying, hey, I may know something now?
Yeah, and I think they are. And it's hard to put a number there because you don't know who was not speaking out in previous years. But I can't speak for all my command staff, but I feel very welcomed everywhere we go. When we do our neighborhood walks, when we go to the community meetings, I hear from a lot of people that introduce themselves and say, hey, got a really good response from police last week or last month, or I appreciate you being here. And I think that's got to contribute. And there's no way that having those relationships is not going to contribute to lowering that overall crime.
You're building that bond.
Right, correct.
Now, you mentioned, you mentioned that community policing is something that you guys were big on this past year. What are you guys going to be doing differently this year to get those numbers down even more?
Well, specifically, we're scheduling more grassroots walks. And one way we're going to do that, grassroots walks generally put a lot of effort into them, and we provide a lot of material for the residents, and we generally follow those up with what we call a party with a purpose, where we invite the neighborhoods to another event the next week. And that's great, but it does involve a lot of work, involves a lot of man hours. So, for example, this next week, just myself and the command staff are going to go walk through a neighborhood. Had a lady contact me a couple weeks ago, and she said, hey, I'd like you to come speak in a small community. I'd like to come speak to some of my neighbors. And so instead of trying to organize our entire community-oriented policing bureau, who has a lot of things going on this week, I said, we'll do it. So myself, my deputy chief, my chief administrative assistant, or assistant chiefs, we're going to go out and knock on doors. Nothing fancy, not planning any party with a purpose to follow it up, but you're going to see more of that, just an opportunity to go out in the afternoon and just start knocking on some doors, going to some parks, talking to the kids, things like that.
Is there some kind of metric you use for Crime Stoppers? Do people, for example, in 2018, maybe 500,000 people called or whatever, are you seeing increases or decreases from last year to Crime Stoppers?
I don't know that we've seen increases. We do have some of those numbers. In fact, in the press release we're going to put out, we do specifically mention how many videos or how many calls we got on videos that cleared up crime. But I don't, as I stand here today, I can't tell you percentage-wise whether that was up or down from 2018.
That is something that we'd like to measure, though. We would like to. I met with Chief and his team and their data scientists for the police department. We met a couple months ago, and we would like to actually establish the baseline right now for touch points that we get with the community and reporting so that we can measure it going forward to see how effective this is with numbers, to tell the story with numbers.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I heard you speak at North Shreveport. I think you said that y'all have the CLOs are now one per district and one for downtown. Could you just maybe a little bit about what a CLO does and how they contribute to your success?
Certainly. So the community liaison officer is a key function, a key part of that community-oriented policing philosophy. And let me start by saying a patrol officer, for example, on a daily basis may be very busy. They may respond to 35, 40 calls per service during an 8-hour period, which literally means they go from one call to the next for 8 hours. And it's difficult to really get to the root of the problem. So if I've got two neighbors that had an argument, patrol officer responds, breaks up the argument, and then goes to the next call. A community liaison officer goes in and says, why was there an argument to begin with? Can talk to both of the neighbors, can talk to the neighborhood, and really get to the root issue there. Is this something that maybe the families haven't got along for years? Was there a fight maybe 6 months ago that the patrol officer didn't have time to delve into? And so that CLO has a chance to really get to know the neighbors that he serves and kind of help out with some of those deep-rooted problems that are going to prevent future crime. So what John is discussing is we recently reallocated those personnel. As opposed to having a community liaison officer assigned to each crime district, we now have a CLO assigned to a council district. So we have 7 CLOs for each of the 7 council districts. We also assigned one to downtown specifically for the downtown entertainment district.
What would you say to anybody that might be a little skeptical about some of the numbers that y'all talking about?
So, don't be. We have to report these numbers to the FBI. We're not cooking the books in any way. This is in 50 years we can show you the numbers we've reported, and the facts are the facts, and the facts are that Part 1 crime is the lowest rate it's been since 1975.
I'm being a cynic. You're really cynic.
All right. Are there no more questions?
Yeah, I will add this. Crime typically is a cyclical thing. It'll go up and down some years. So the most important thing here, even if people say, hey, they're not satisfied with these numbers, is that our attitude is towards fighting every year to try to reduce crime to 0. That's the attitude that we're bringing towards our public safety problems here in Shreveport, and we're just always going to work to improve to get better. On a final note, and Chief did a good job at highlighting this was a huge team effort, not just us and the citizens, but also other agencies, the Sheriff's Office, the state police, you name it. But what I don't want to, I'd be remiss if I didn't invite the fire chief up here if he wanted to say something, because I don't think our citizens realize how much our firemen do in responding to scenes and saving lives on scenes. And what they do just throughout the city. So if you want to make some remarks on behalf of the fire department in your role, Chief, jump on up.
Sure. Thank you. I just want to say I appreciate the Shreveport Police Department because we respond to a lot of calls also. We respond to a lot of calls together, and they're always there. I can give you an example. If we make a house fire, we're laying a lot of hose on the ground. Well, when that hose gets run over by a car, it doesn't work very well for us, okay? So, there's always a police officer there controlling traffic and protecting our equipment, so that protects our firefighters, that protects our citizens. So we're always very appreciative of that. We go to a lot of these calls of crime also with them. We see what they go through. We see the hard work that they do out there. And I just want to say, on behalf of all the men and women of the Shreveport Fire Department, we support the Shreveport Police Department. They have a hard job, and they do a dangerous job. They put themselves in harm's way every single day, and they perform it very well. So we're very proud of them, very proud to work alongside them, very proud to be a part of the public safety component for the citizens of Shreveport. And we want to do everything we can to continue to bring these numbers down and also bring our numbers down as it relates to the Shreveport Fire Department, reducing fires and reducing loss of life and property in the city of Shreveport.
Thank you.
All right, go.
Thanks, sir.